everyone. Welcome to the Massimo Show. And every time I tell you we have an amazing guest, but this time I'll tell you, of all the entrepreneurs we've had on the Massimo Show, this gentleman may be the ultimate entrepreneur. It's the one and only Mr. Nick Huber. Yeah, you know him from social media, well, you should at least, but he's done so much. Now I'm going to boast about him a little bit before we get him started. He is the author of the new book, The Sweaty Startup, Getting Rich Doing Boring Things. But more than that, Nick started out with storage in college, building a storage organization called the Storage Squad, and built that to 25 major colleges across the country. And then he created Bolt Storage, a self-storage organization now managing over 2 million square feet of storage in 68 locations. And that asset's worth well over $100 million. But that's not enough for Nick. Of course, they do more. So now he's acquired the controlling interest in somewhere.com. And well, he'll tell you about that as well. Let's just put it this way. He's over almost 800,000 followers on social media. If you follow Nick, and you should, it's not just about the business, which we're going to talk about today, but it's also about the life of an entrepreneur. And I love Nick's perspective on work-life balance and everything else.
Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, and welcome to the Massimo Show. The objective of the Massimo Show is to share how you can maximize your personal and professional margin. That's right. Let's make more money in less time. Let's turn chaos into clarity, confusion into confidence, and income into real wealth. Along with sharing my insight on how I grew a multi-million-dollar professional business, we will bring you expert advice from various authors, consultants, and industry leaders. We'll provide you the tools you need to build that commercial real estate business and life you have always desired. Welcome to the Massimo Show.
So Nick, welcome to the Massimo Show.
Rod, I love your work, man. High-performing people with balance, I think, is what you're all about, and our circles overlap a lot there.
Yeah, it really does. Now, Nick, I always ask one question before I ask anything else, and that is, who was Nick Huber in high school? Your audience that flavor.
I was a wildly confident, energetic person. I was just energetic enough, like the ball rolls by the puppies, the old dogs will sit back and watch it roll. I got after it, man. The littlest opportunity got me excited. I'm thankful because looking back, those opportunities were not that great. They were not exciting. They were not fun. They were a little bit boring and sweaty. But man, I had just enough energy to get after it and just enough confidence to think I could do crazy things, made a lot of mistakes and learned as I went. And looking back, I wasn't that smart, but wild confidence can get you pretty far.
Your confidence can get you extremely far. Now, where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Southern Indiana. My dad worked for a real estate developer as a VP of development. My mom's a school nurse, middle-class family.
Awesome. So you went off to college. Where'd you go to school? And tell us about that experience.
Went to Cornell, and I was the last guy recruited on the track team. Ended up meeting amazing friends. I saw your picture, you and the guys at Washington Lee get back together. That's the group of guys that I got lucky enough to be with as well. I mean, best friends. One of them was my business partner, co-captain on my track team at Cornell. Met my wife at Cornell. Unbelievable experience.
Well, Cornell is an absolutely incredible school. Unfortunately, we got our butts kicked when we went up to Ithaca a couple of times, but that's a whole different story. The Big Red Machine was the Big Red Machine back in the day and still today. But your entrepreneurial, was it the bug that started in college? The obviously was before then, but tell our audience about your college business and what was the origin?
I think the blessing for me was that I wasn't into entrepreneurship. I wasn't watching Shark Tank. I wasn't studying Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and, what was happening in Silicon Valley. If I would have been, I probably would have went a totally different direction. I would have tried to start a big idea startup, tried to raise some capital. Maybe I would have made it, but more than likely I would have failed over and over again like they do and went and got a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a pretty balanced college. I was drinking beers, building relationships with my friends. I met my wife there. I was having a great time in sports. I was studying just enough to get by, and I had enough time to make a little cash in a side business on the side. And the crazy thing about business is it's about momentum. I mean, that first day I was loading up a Cadillac DeVille with boxes, and you fast forward 10 years and, we have 300 plus employees across our organization and, controlling interest in some pretty big companies and some really exciting things going on. But if I would have started with that goal in mind, I never would have got there because it was, and entrepreneurship, it's a long, sweaty, doing not fun, boring things over and over and over again until the momentum hits and the snowball starts rolling down the hill, and then it's really hard to stop.
Yeah, like you're at the subconscious competence. And so you made a giant leap there from this idea to 300, right? So let's go back to the origin though. What was it that you were in college and you just noticed something about a need So take us back then. What did you notice and what was your...
My dad taught me, I wasn't raised in a family of entrepreneurs. My dad didn't have any equity, any rental properties, or any businesses. He was a very high performing leader at a company, but he taught me how to think about business by putting me on a lawnmower when I was a kid, and I was making 20 bucks an hour when all my friends were making $6.25 working at Subway. So everywhere I went, I was thinking, how does that company make money? How does this company make money? And in Ithaca, New York, I saw Big Red Moving and Storage. They were doing things in a really crappy way, weighing boxes, inefficient, driving around campus, picking up stuff. They did pick up and delivery storage when the students went home. And I was like, dang, did some basic math about how many crews they had. I followed one of the trucks back to the warehouse, saw how big it was. And I did some math that they were making, they'd probably made $400,000 in revenue in Ithaca, New York in one season. And I'm like, damn, if I can outdo them and make $200,000 of revenue and $50K of its profit, I'm earning about the same amount of money that I would if I went and got a job out of college. So I just got excited about that prospect of trading my time for money and replacing that income. Next thing you know, we're 3 years down the road doing over $1 million of revenue. And then 2016 was our first year where we did over 2 million of annual revenue. And it was a really hard business. I mean, we had 8 main locations, 25 colleges, and it all happened at one time. Everything happened during finals week. So we had to have 200 part-time employees driving trucks around and organizing warehouses. We had to get boxes everywhere, supplies. So I learned delegation, management, operations by just putting my nose to the grindstone and doing really hard things, man.
Again, our listeners are going, who is this guy? Because it's just so, it's natural to you, but it's not natural to most. It's not. So what you're doing is so amazing. And that's that one business. That's the first one. But folks, you got to read Sweaty Startup.
Fast forward to 2015, we realized that, hey, this business is good. It can pay us, we were making maybe $250K between us a year, but it's super, super stressful. I mean, we'd lose 20 pounds during the busy season because there was no time to eat. We were sleeping in warehouses in Everett, Massachusetts, back when that was not a good neighborhood. And we realized, hey, we got to figure out something else. So we thought, okay, what's a business out there? We just looked unemotionally at the market, said, what's a business where not very smart people are making a whole lot of money? And we found really quick that self-storage owners, they didn't answer the phone, they didn't have websites, they didn't do digital marketing, they didn't charge enough, they were 100% full, they didn't answer the phone on weekends. And yet a self-storage facility, we did the math on, every unit's charging $100, they got 300 units, that's 30,000 US dollars a month coming in revenue. We're like, all right, we're in the wrong business. So instead of doing the reasonable thing, which is go acquire one of those buildings, they were cheap as hell at that time, that we went and built one from the ground up. Raised 2.9 million from a bank. We raised 1.7 from a bank. We raised a bunch more from investors and built a storage facility from the ground up, a 50-gallon. It smelled.
You're going way too fast. This is not you. Now, you said I raised that money. How old were you when you raised that money?
I was 24 years old going from dinner table to dinner table one. Actually, 2015, sorry, I was 26. I was 26.
You're still a kid going to banks, having a concept, raising money, right? It's just incredible. But I'm going to go take a step back because I read something in the book and it was really interesting. You had your doubters, to say the least, when you were doing your ideas. And so share the story of your teammates during sports, like me in college sports and business, everything else. So tell the folks about the doubters and what you learned from that.
Anytime you do something unique in life, there's going to be a small subset of people who support you and want you to win. And then there's going to be a silent majority that don't really want you to win because watching you win makes them feel worse about themselves. That's just kind of the way life works, is that there's a lot of people with a crab in a bucket mentality that if somebody's trying to get out, they'll try to pull you back down. So yeah, we bought a $1,500 beat up red rusty cargo van on Craigslist, and we were driving that around town picking up boxes. Running a moving company, looking back, it was pretty laughable. Like they had a reason to make fun of me, but I'm about to walk into practice one day. I'm a junior. Some of the seniors on the team, guys that won races and were respectable, I kind of hear them talking when I'm walking in the locker room, and I kind of sit back and realize they're talking about me. They're making fun of me. They're saying, we're out here getting, I remember the quote, like, we're out here getting jobs at Goldman Sachs in New York City, and Huber's driving around they called the van a not kind word for a van with no windows that you drive around town. And it just hurt. It hurt. I can sit here and act like you see a confident persona on Twitter. I was really confident in life in general, but anybody who says they don't care what people think is kind of lying. So I had to kind of just suck it up, go about my business, and it didn't really start to pay off for about 4 or 5 years after that. But then I started to make more money than they made.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think it's important folks understand it's truly your work ethic and your dedication and commitment to yourself and your vision is unique. It is, amongst the populace, it just is. So now you think about this, you wanted to sell storage, you developed your first building, but you didn't stop there. And I met your dad last year. Is he one of your partners in your self-storage operation?
So my dad invested $100K into our first deal, and he didn't tell me, but he took a mortgage on our childhood home and property to make that investment. I'm glad he didn't tell me, or I would have been really, because the deal got stressful, as you read in the book. Like, we had to go back and raise it. You know, we went 500K over budget. So we had to get 25% more money from everybody who invested. We had to go back to the bank. And yeah, it was not a good deal. But 2 years ago, we bought out all of our investors at a $10 million valuation. And my dad's 125K became over $500,000, and it's a massive chunk of his net worth today. So really proud of that.
You got to be very proud of that.
But to raise that money, I went from my dad wasn't in a country club. He didn't have a bunch of rich friends. So I went from dinner table to see 50 people, and they were the wrong people. They didn't actually have the money. They didn't know how it worked. Finally met a couple people through his network, an architect here, you know, a guy who owns a company over here that would pitch in 100K. And to finish out the deal, I'm proud of this, I convinced the realtor who sold me the land to build the building. I convinced him to put in the last 125K in the deal. Same deal with the banks. Like, I went from bank to bank to bank, and almost all of them turned me down. Tompkins Trust Company, Jason Moore in Ithaca, New York, he's still there. He's still my loan officer. They have loans with us on 6 different deals in upstate New York, but they were an amazing partner with us, and they trusted the wide-eyed 26-year-old who had no business doing that first deal.
But you didn't stop there. Tell us about your latest acquisition. I love the story.
Yeah, we realized really quick that storage was way better than moving.
Yeah.
So we bought another building in 2018, 4 more buildings in 2019 with our own cash, a couple more in 2020, raised some cash. We closed and sold our moving and storage business, Storage Squad, in 2021. That was a $1.7 million exit, nothing crazy. Me and my partner split the money. We paid out a couple guys on the team and went from there, took that cash, threw it right into storage, and now we have 63 properties, and we raised a bunch more money. It's going really well. 2021, I got involved in a company called somewhere.com. They find international employees for US-based companies. I was first a customer, and they put me in front of 3 people who wanted to make $800 a month to work for a US business, and it blew my mind, and I hired all 3 of them. Continued to build my company overseas since then. And then I became an affiliate partner first, talking about the business online. A year later, I bought into the company. It had really started to grow. It was doing $250,000 a month of revenue at that point. Over the next 2 years, it really exploded, doing $1 million plus a month of revenue. I was a minority partner at this time. The majority owner, Marshall Haas, called me and said, Nick, I want to sell my business. And Andrew Wilkinson, a private equity guy, wants to buy it, $47 million, and wants to sell 51% of it. And I had kind of a turning point decision in my life. Do I sell half my equity and take almost $4 million and do whatever I want with that? Or do I find a way to own more of this thing instead of less? So I spent the next 2 months convincing Marshall, instead of selling to that group or whoever, to sell the company to me. And so in that 3-month period, the revenue went up, the profit went up, the valuation went up a little bit to $52 million. But on May 1st of last year, I closed on the deal to acquire an additional 58.25% of somewhere.com. I raised $20 million from 39 investors, and I borrowed in a seller note directly to me from Marshall. I borrowed another $9.3 million. Biggest deal I've done. And yeah, that's where we're at today.
That's fantastic. That's just incredible. So you saw an exit opportunity, but you said, no, there's a bigger horizon here. So you took it.
I wasn't ready. I didn't have permission to do that deal. I wasn't a PE guy. I'd never operated a company doing $1 million plus a month of revenue. I think that's just a common theme in my life, is that I never had permission to do any of this stuff. If I would have tried to go get a job working for Bob Knackle or Sam Zell out of college in New York City doing either brokerage or real estate PE, they would have said, no, you're not qualified. No way. You studied labor relations in college, you ran track. Like, who gives you permission to do real estate?
Right.
So I just did it. Same with starting the business, same with buying somewhere. And that's just kind of a theme, is that you take calculated risks in life, and with that comes a lot of stress and a lot of learning, but I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess.
So I got to ask, I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. So have you had any failures? Because I've had plenty.
A lot of failures, yeah. A lot of branches of Storage Squad that didn't work. A lot of things that happened at Storage Squad that cost us a ton of money, whether it be car accidents or warehouses flooding. Some things that are super, super stressful and had our business on the brink of just not happening anymore. Also, that first deal going way over budget, that was a very hard time. When we didn't have any revenue, we're in the dead of winter in Ithaca, New York, we're behind schedule, and all of a sudden we're realizing that we're gonna have to come up with another $500,000 that I don't have. Those things are not easy. And I've hired a lot of friends and family members over the years, and a guy who stood up in my wedding and is still a really, really good friend of mine today I had to let him go from my company, and he cried in my arms because he didn't know how he was going to feed his family, and he had a new baby. That stuff, nobody talks about that side of entrepreneurship.
No one talks that side of ownership. Gut wrenching.
Hey folks, Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Group. And did you know we work with thousands of your commercial real estate peers over the past 15 years now? And we've helped them build the business and the life they've always desired. And yeah, we have programs now for every level of success, experience, and yeah, even budget. So if you're tired of living on that transaction treadmill, of living in the chaos and the whirlwind of commercial real estate, if you want more clarity, more control, and more consistency, and yeah, higher commissions, give us a call. Visit us at www.massimo-group.com. That's www.massimo-group.com and schedule a free strategy session today.
So, Nick, obviously you're a phenomenal success on the entrepreneurial side, but you're also a phenomenal success on the personal side. And this is one of the things I most admire about you is you really understand the priorities in life. So do you want to just reflect a little bit of what your perspective is on family and business?
Yeah, I think if I fast forward to me being 80 years old, my end goal, and this is the guiding principle of everything I do in life, look, business is really fun. I'm addicted to it. It's like gambling with the odds in your favor. And I love building teams. I love positively impacting people. I'll never stop. But like my guiding light at the end of the tunnel in everything I do is to be 80 years old, and I want to be healthy enough and fit enough to get on the ground and roll around with my great grandkids. I want to be able to walk 18 holes of golf with my bag on my back at 80 years old. And on Christmas Eve, I want to be sitting in a leather chair at a big ass house. And I want my daughters, my son-in-laws, my sons, my daughter-in-laws, their kids just running everywhere and messing up the house. Like that's success to me. I got up this morning after I dropped my son off at school. I went and I ran hills. Wasn't fun. Sure as hell wasn't fun. Then I got a sauna.
Fun.
You know, it's definitely not fun dealing with a 4-year-old boy who just wants his little sister or his big brother to be pissed off. Like he's not happy unless they're crying. It's not fun being in the trenches of doing some of these things, but it's all that really matters to me in life is the family and the mark I leave on the people around me.
Well, your 4-year-old son sounds like the young Nick Huber who was just had all the energy and didn't stop.
I don't know if they can edit a picture on this podcast if you're watching, but I'll show you a picture of him. He's got a mullet, wears high white socks. He's a modern day hockey player. I don't know. He just wants to fight.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Nick, you mentioned you have confidence, right? Is that waned during these seasons of entrepreneurship, or is it constant? Is it comes always there?
Oh, hell yeah. It wanes. There's moments. The thing about entrepreneurship is that there's moments where you don't want to be an entrepreneur. I tell a lot of those stories in the Sweaty Startup book that I've never told before about the deep, dark depths of entrepreneurship. Because 5 years ago, I was telling everybody, I was screaming at the top of my lungs that everybody should be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I pretty firmly believe that only a small portion of people should become entrepreneurs.
I agree.
Because the depths of it, the doubting, the uncertainty, the fear, there's moments where from the outside, it looks like everything's rocking and rolling, but just there's people, there's drama, there's problems to the point where you get home and you just want to go curl up in your bed and cry to your wife that like, what the hell am I doing to myself? So the confidence wanes, you got to get through it. And I think the great thing about this is that dealing with the stress and pressure is a skill and it's a muscle. If you want to build muscles, you go to the gym and lift the weights. You don't watch videos and read books about building muscle. The same goes for stress and dealing with uncomfortable situations. Like you want to get better at cold calling. What's the best way to get better at cold calling? You pick up the phone and dial and you get used to people saying no. So luckily I've dealt with so much stress and hardship in my life that pretty stressful things now don't really bother me.
I applaud you. It took me literally 60 years to figure that out. It did. And then at 60, I just said, nothing bothered me anymore. It's just like,
But bigger businesses, more money, bigger teams, the problems get bigger and the stress gets bigger. So, but I think that that's the beautiful thing about this. Like parenting is so amazing because of the lows and the hardship. And that's what makes it, parenting amplifies the lows and it amplifies the highs.
yeah,
And that's why it's so rewarding. Anything in life worth doing is really hard at times. Like the most addictive video games in the world, you're still going to lose most of the time because that feeling of then accomplishing it is so much better when it's hard and when you lose. So that's what I love about business is that it's hard.
it's hard. It's hard. Yeah, it is hard. Like, do we wait your sense of this word? I believe in this one other C word beyond confidence. Confidence is obviously an amazing trait, but I think unless you have true conviction, true conviction that you know that you are ultimately going to succeed and you're ultimately the best at what you do, and you provide value to others, that deflects on everything. What's your thought about conviction?
I think conviction is a byproduct of good decision making. If you can prove over and over and over again by your experiences in life that, hey, I am actually qualified to make this decision. I know what I'm talking about. I can trust my gut. Then it makes it easier to forge through those difficult situations and get true conviction on where you're headed and where you're going. I firmly believe I've been making higher and higher and higher stake decisions now for 15 years as an entrepreneur. And over time, I start to realize the patterns that, hey, I'm good at this. Like, I can handle this. I can do it. And that, you're absolutely right, is a muscle that's built over time. It's a skill. Decision-making. There's a whole chapter in my book about decision-making because I believe people don't talk about it enough, and it's really, really hard to do. But if you can start to trust your decisions, then good things happen. But I mean, on the other side, you got to have that self-doubt and you got to have that balance because you'll get yourself in some trouble with the blind spots and the things you start to ignore if you trust yourself too much.
That's a great point. So you have a vision of this great-grandpa Nick sitting in the leather chair on Christmas Eve with the great-grandkids running around the house. But somewhere is not the final destination for you from a business standpoint. No doubt it won't be. Is there another vision in your head right now saying there's something else?
I want to turn somewhere into a $250 million a year revenue company. I'm at about 18 to 20 now.
Okay.
So I got a lot of work to do, but I think it's the first business that I've been a part of that has that potential. I can just feel it. I can feel the energy. And then Bolt Storage, I want to just shovel proceeds from that into my real estate holdings. So from a business perspective, I think if I just make good decisions and I don't get too much debt and I don't get too aggressive and get too greedy, I think really good things are going to happen. But man, if you would have told me 10 years ago in 2015, right when we were breaking ground on that first self-storage facility, if you would have told me where I am today,
right,
I would have been like, pinch me like this. I would have been happy being here at the end of my career,
right,
when I'm 65 or 70. So man, I don't know. I hope that I am humble enough and have enough humility to make the best decisions to not take a big buck, like a loss, to have something bad happen in my real estate portfolio or company wise. I don't think I'm going to let that happen because if you stay away from leverage enough, you're going to be okay in most situations. But it's really, really hard to say where I'll be 10 years from now because momentum is a hell of a thing. So if one of these companies starts to really go and really grow, they can get big really fast.
So you've accelerated everything you've been in. Exponential growth. There's been everywhere you've gone, whether it be the self-storage at college, the Bolt Storage with self-storage now, and now it's somewhere, exponential growth. What is the greatest accelerant in your mind? Is it the team? Is it technology? Is it platforms? What is the greatest accelerant that you're leveraging to make these things grow as fast as they are?
There's two things. There's a tactical thing that is South Africa as a destination for talent. South Africans run big companies. They're amazing at sales. Johannesburg is the New York City of Africa. You can track down unbelievable talent to be head of revenue operations, head of sales, head of acquisitions, head of finance. I'm doing a CEO search at one of my smaller companies right now, and we are going to find a CEO in Johannesburg, South Africa. So when you can pay a CEO in Joburg $8K a month base, and a CEO in San Francisco wants $33,000 a month, plus equity, plus options, plus severance, plus all those other things in California, you can grow a lot faster. You can hire a lot more talent, and you can take more risks on people when you go that way. Now, from the mindset side, for me, it's the unbelievable sense of urgency. I've had to slow down because when the companies get bigger and you have 160 employees, you can't just grab it and turn it and change and shake, but we still move really, really fast. Like a new initiative can be written on the whiteboard. I keep a little notebook by my bed because I can't have my phone in my room or I'll never sleep.
Right.
An idea can be scribbled, at 11 p.m. on this little notepad by my bed. And by 8 a.m., I'm in a huddle with my team in South Africa because they're up and rolling already. And by noon, we're having a meeting to implement it with the team. When you can move really, really fast in business, amazing things happen. Now, it's a double-edged sword because you can mess stuff up really fast too. But I think a sense of urgency and just like, hey, if it needs done, it's a race. Like business is a race because your competitors, every minute you wait, are getting ground on you. That's been a big accelerant in my life, is that we are not afraid to make a decision, look at what's out there to build the conviction, like look at all the factors of the decision, okay, now we have conviction that this is the right decision. We trust ourselves. I'm going to go tell my smart people on my team what I think. They're going to disagree with me and we're going to discuss it. But if we all decide and we all have conviction, bang, like we're off.
I love it. I love it. Nick, you're incredible. Where can people best get more of you and your material?
You can email me, nick@sweatystartup.com. Me and my team read all those emails. I write a newsletter as well every Monday that goes out. But look, my book is really kind of my mindset around all this. So I think we'll put a link down below in the podcast show notes or wherever, but you can order The Sweaty Startup and read it and then send me an email, nick@sweatystartup.com, and let me know what you think of it.
Well, there you go, folks. Nick Huber, incredible success. And he's just a kid. He's only 35. So, but as we share with everyone and as we preach at Massimo, knowing isn't doing, you can say, yeah, that sounds great, but Nick's a doer, and that makes a big difference here. So go out and implement what you learned today, do it, and then see the transformation happen. Nick, thank you so much for being part of the Massimo Show.
Rod, thanks for being a part of my life and part of so many people who follow you, man. You're on a mission to make people better, which is my mission as well, and I really appreciate it.
I love it. Until next time, everyone, it's been Rod Santomassimo with The Massimo Show.
Hey, that's it. That's a wrap for this episode of The Massimo Show. Once again, hopefully you learned a lot of value provided by our guests, or maybe by me. But the key is this. As we say at Massimo, knowing isn't doing. So don't kid yourself. You have to go out and do the work. You have to implement what you learned if you want to get the results. And please, if you like this episode, please share it. Share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends. Heck, share it with your dog. Just share it. And we look forward to seeing you next time on The Massimo Show.